Welcome to another story made by Oracle 1. The air was heavy with anticipation as the 5 explorers stood at the mouth of the Obsidian Rift, a yawning fissure carved deep into the side of the ancient mountain. For centuries, the rift had beckoned adventurers, scientists, and thrill-seekers alike, but none had ever dared brave the passage beyond the first few hundred feet. Legends whispered of lost labyrinthine passages running beneath the earth, paths that twisted through eternal darkness. Tonight, guided by the unwavering light of their headlamps and the fierce determination to uncover what lay beneath, the team prepared to descend into the unknown. Dr. Ava Mercer adjusted her helmet light and took a cautious breath. The lead cave scientist, Ava had dedicated years to studying subterranean ecosystems, always yearning to find a new marvel, or nightmare, hidden away from the world above. Next to her stood Caleb, their meticulous geologist, scanning the jagged rock walls with a practiced eye. Behind them, sonorous footsteps marked the presence of James, the rope specialist, Rosa, the seasoned navigator, and lastly Daniel, the group's tech-savvy documentary filmmaker, who captured everything on his high-definition camera. Ava pulled out a trail map drawn from satellite imagery, which was scant at best. The rift's entrance was barely documented, and deeper passages were a mystery. A collective nod, a hiss of anticipation, and they secured their harnesses to the rusted iron ladder swung into the void like a giant, pendulous bone. The first few meters descended smoothly. The ladder creaked under their weight, but the rock walls flared outward to reveal a cavernous chamber that swallowed their headlight beams whole. The air shifted instantly, colder, damp, and tinged with a faint metallic scent. Ava shivered, a sensation not caused by temperature, but by a premonition crawling just under her skin. As Caleb's pick struck the wall, a scattered ring echoed across the chamber, but something was wrong. The cave's acoustics were unnatural, a discordant series of hollow notes relayed back like a far-off whisper. Suddenly, the walls flickered under their headlamps, and Daniel's voice cracked as he spoke into his headset. "Did anyone else see that? It looked like patterns." "Patterns? In the rock?" Ava asked, keenly alert now. They crowded into a tighter circle, scanning the walls. Near the base of the chamber, carved into the otherwise raw rock, lay a web of interconnected lines that formed an intricate mosaic. It wasn't the typical meandering mineral veins or natural cracks. The carvings were too precise, symmetrical, and utterly alien. Etched deep were geometric shapes, circles overlapping with triangles, spiraling runes radiating out like a frozen storm. Ava reached out with a gloved hand to trace the shallow furrows, feeling the strange grooves that seemed almost deliberate. Rosa frowned. "These don't look natural. They're too uniform, like a language or a code. Who would carve something this deep?" Caleb muttered, his usual scientific tone turning to quiet bewilderment. "It's centuries if not millennia old." James, always practical, pulled out a portable scanner and circled the chamber slowly. The device beeped and hummed, but readings were inconsistent, showing artificial anomalies far from the usual mineral signatures. "There's some sort of residual electromagnetic energy here. This area is active, in ways I can't explain yet." The group exchanged uneasy glances. It was supposed to be a simple exploration, a descent for cataloging and research, but instead they were stepping into an enigma older than history. Pressed onward by their collective curiosity, they ventured deeper into the rift. The descent ladder gave way to narrower passages, winding like the ribs of some ancient, colossal beast. The walls closed in until their shoulders nearly grazed the rough stone. The geometry of the cave grew stranger. Unnatural symmetry dominated the surfaces, recurring spiraled glyphs, concentric rings meticulously etched with painstaking effort. At one point, they entered a chamber unlike anything they had seen before. The floor was glassy, smooth, and perfectly polished, reflecting their lights with eerie precision. Ava knelt down and touched the surface. The sensation was disorienting, a coldness that did not belong entirely to the stone below. Embedded within the floor were translucent crystals, pulsing faintly with an inner light, as if the chamber was breathing or alive. Daniel filmed silently, recording the unsettling scene, his camera capturing shadows that moved just slightly out of sync with reality. "This place, it's like somewhere that shouldn't exist," he whispered. Suddenly, a low humming rose from the edges of the chamber. It started faint but rapidly grew into a droning vibration that seemed to shake the walls themselves. The team froze, listening as the sound swelled into a wave of pressure that rattled their bones. The crystals in the floor glowed brighter, casting shifting kaleidoscopic colors that played against the carved walls. Ava's voice cut through the noise, determined yet trembling. "Everyone stay close. This might be some kind of beacon or mechanism. We need to document everything but be ready to retreat if it becomes dangerous." James scanned the edges of the room where narrow hallways led deeper into the mountain. There are more carvings up ahead, and they extend beyond the crystalline floor. As they moved cautiously down the illuminated passage, the carvings twisted into an interwoven pattern that resembled an elaborate circuit board, a deliberate design meant for function rather than decoration. Ava's heart pounded with a growing suspicion. These were not relics of a forgotten civilization. Something else was at work here, something far older, deliberately hidden beneath the earth. In a small alcove, Caleb found a strange metallic object embedded in the rock. It was disc-shaped, covered in the same glyphic language as the walls. He pried it loose with a crampon, revealing an intricate gear system hidden inside. The object emitted a faint pulse with every beat of their hearts. Suddenly, the ground trembled beneath their feet. A low rumble rolled through the cavern, and dust rained down like sand from unseen ceilings. The team hurried back the way they came, flashlights bobbing wildly in the darkness. Rose's voice was tight with urgency over their comms. "We have to get out. This whole system is unstable now." But as they neared their entrance, the ladder had collapsed, ripped free from its anchor points. "We're trapped," Ava muttered, glancing at the void below. "Unless there's another passage." Daniel's camera flickered with intermittent static before stabilizing on a set of faint symbols carved into a side wall beyond their path. He pointed them out, squinting. Could this be another way out? The team followed cautiously, squeezing into a thinner, darker crevice where the air smelled faintly metallic and alive. As they pressed forward, the walls began to graze a frequency of sound too low to hear, but that made their skin crawl. The patterns on the walls shifted subtly in the glow of their headlamps, no longer static inscriptions, but almost breathing, as if the cave itself were a living entity watching them. Then Ava saw it. A vast chamber looming ahead lit by phosphorescent crystals embedded along the walls. In the center stood a monolith, towering, black, and slick, covered in that recursive pattern of spirals and lines. The monolith radiated not just power but intention. Their electromagnetic devices flared with interference. Ava's breath caught. "Is this the source?" she whispered. Suddenly, the temperature dropped sharply, her breath misting like a ghost in the dim light. The air hummed louder still, a chorus of static and what faintly sounded like whispered voices in a language just beyond comprehension. Without warning, shadows detached themselves from the walls and coalesced into humanoid shapes. Figures woven from darkness itself, their outlines shimmering with the same pattern that tattooed the walls. The explorers froze, heartbeats pounding hard enough to drown out the spectral whispers. Daniel's camera captured it all, the shifting shadows forming limbs, faces, eyes glowing faintly like embers. The figures drifted towards them, slow and deliberate. "They aren't hostile," Ava said slowly, voice shaking but calm. "But they want something." James swallowed hard. "I don't want to find out what." Rosa raised a trembling hand, a silent plea for understanding. Then, like a memory surfacing from the depths, the pattern on the monolith pulsed, and the figures around them stilled, bowing in unison. Ava stepped forward cautiously and extended a hand toward the carvings on the monolith. As her fingers grazed the cold surface, an overwhelming rush of images flooded her mind. Lost civilizations, technology and magic intertwined, guardians of some ancient knowledge tasked with protecting the secrets of the abyss. They were not alone down here. This place was a threshold, a living archive preserved by entities who had long since faded from the material world. The unnatural patterns were not mere decoration, they were a language, a key, and a warning. Suddenly, the chamber shuddered violently. The shadows darted back into the angular cracks of the walls, the monolith's glow dimmed, and the feeling of being watched vanished as quickly as it had come. The cave began collapsing. "Run!" Ava shouted. The explorers bolted through winding passages, the earth rumbling with a fury that threatened to seal them in forever. Rocks tumbled, dust choked the air, but somehow, they pushed through, driven by a primal will to survive. At last, they burst into the fresh air of the night. They were covered in dirt, trembling and breathless, but alive. Behind them, the obsidian rift sealed, dark and silent once more. As dawn broke, Ava looked back towards the mountain's shadow. The unnatural patterns, the living darkness, the monolith's cryptic message, these things would haunt her forever. Because some doors, once opened, refused to be closed. For more stories, like and subscribe.